This is James Arnold Taylor, voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Welcome to a more civilized podcast. This is the podcast you're looking for. You may not go about your business. Stay here, listen, and then move along.
Hello, listeners, and wow, you missed a whole lot of things that will never see the light of day.
Yep. Yeah. Which I will probably also delete from the base file that I normally don't edit.
Thank you.
Yep.
Wow.
It's been quite the intro
an
for
hour
us.
of...
Only a half hour.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
But
Hey,
it
we're
felt
doing
like a
all
long time.
Yeah. Half
Wow,
hour.
a
of
lot
some
of gossip.
So, I'm Kyler.
I'm Chris.
And I'm scarred.
For reals.
I'm
I was
yeah.
going to say
Now
we
you're
should-
just making everybody curious. I mean,
Yep. And we're just going to leave it there.
Yep. Ross, go ahead. Take the news
there was
away.
some nasty gossip. We talked about a game I'm making, which wasn't the traumatizing part, I hope, but we can't tell you about that because that's trade secrets. And then Chris made a really dark joke.
Really, really dark joke.
Like, even for the internet,
Like,
it's pretty dark.
Even Chris is ashamed of himself and needs
Yeah.
to go home and rethink his life. But
Anyway, let's talk some Star Wars, fellas. Let's do some newsy news.
yes, the newsiest
news ever. Along with some rumors that have been dispelled. Ooh. So, the big drama for this week has been the the totally for sure true fact that the Kenobi series was canceled.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't.
So,
yeah,
at the
it went.
start
There's
of the
been various
week,
stages in that report. Yeah.
Yeah, like the start of the week, it was the Kenobi series has been canceled, and then each day we got a little more like, oh well, okay, maybe it wasn't. Okay, well, so then, and now here we are at the end of the week going.
It's just shortened, and
Well,
bunch of the staff were laid
the
off,
current thing is,
and-
and it's not. It's just that most of the working staff was just sent home. It was like, okay, we're stopping production at the moment, wholesale, just stopping everything we're doing, aside from writing. Apparently, sent everyone home with no clear idea of when they're coming back, or if they're coming back. Although there's several prominent figures saying yes, they are. And then news came out that it would have been shortened from 6 episodes to 4. And then Ewan McGregor was like, no, it's still happening. And also insisted that this wasn't going to affect the release date, which was like, but
Really,
how?
though?
Ewan?
Well, he said it was a delay in the beginning of filming.
Yeah.
Did it say how far? I don't remember reading if it said how much of
We
a
don't know
delay.
yet.
Yeah,
it
they didn't
has
say.
not been specified, but
Because if it's just a couple weeks, it probably won't. Because
Yeah.
all those post effects or post editing and effects and all of that, those people are unfortunately commonly told to crunch.
yes.
And
I was
get those
just going to
things
say
done.
they're under crunch time regardless. So
Depending on their project managers, but like if that's the case and it's not affecting the deadline, they will be.
Yeah.
But
And that's.
anyway, they will be. So, no news is good news.
Yeah.
There's no
well,
real...
and I've seen a lot of people going back and forth and just like, no, they're taking the time to do the story right and everything. And I'm like, yeah, on the one hand, that is a good sign. Like, at
if
least
that's what they're actually doing.
part of the problem with Rise of Skywalker is that they were pushing it to meet a deadline, even though they had a lot of complications in the writing and filming, with Colin Trevorrow being let go, and then everything else that happened. Like, a significant part of the problem is just that they didn't have time to do a movie of that scale, and also that they were trying to do 2 movies in one. On top of that, but then at the same time, I'm sitting
And the
here
fact
like,
that they were actively working to make the worst 2 movies in
yes,
one.
there's that.
they
See, and that's the
could.
thing is like I've seen a lot of people being like, "No, guys, calm down.
Yeah.
This is a good thing. This is them taking their time and doing it right." But then I hear that it's not going to affect the release date, and I'm like, "Well, that's not good. Then that's if it's not going to. We're not actually pushing back the release date. Something's going to get crunched somewhere, and that's not good." But then
And
I'm
see-
like, LucasArts has also slightly damaged my belief that they have sufficient enough storytelling chops at this point to turn out a good product, even if they do take the time.
Yeah.
So,
And Lucasfilm, by the way, not LucasArts.
yes, thank you. Sorry, LucasArts is fine.
But like
In their grave.
but my thing, even from that first report of the Kenobi series being canceled, was like, is it though? Because of how ravenous people are for this to come out, Disney, even
no,
if
they're not canceling it. It's not gonna happen.
there's no way that's going to be
Not
canceled.
once it's announced. They've got Ewan McGregor attached. They're not canceling that.
After they did the whole huge thing
and
at
the rumor
Celebration.
was that it was basically it turned out the story that as it had been submitted was too close to the Mandalorian storyline, and so they were like, we want to change it.
I've heard
to make
rumors
it a
of
little more
that. I've
different.
heard rumors that the late rewrites on Rise of Skywalker contradict something from this or blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I don't really buy that one,
Yeah.
but there's been a lot of rumors swirling about that. And for me, I'm just sitting here like, this is a series I didn't want in the first place. So,
Yeah.
whatevs.
But from there, we move on to things that are true. And the Clone Wars series and their date, I guess, we haven't listed here as a correction. Did we say a date before?
We had reported the 17th.
Okay.
Which was the rumor as of the day we recorded that.
Right.
Yeah.
But Disney just 3 days after that episode released, it was so dumb.
Yeah.
I was like, dang it, we missed it by that much.
Especially with how often that happens to us, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was 3 days later, they were like, it's the
21st.
Yeah, the 21st.
Yeah. Well, and that's and if you haven't seen the trailer, it's a good watch.
Oh,
it's
boy,
yeah.
is it?
So
it looks. Yeah, I can guarantee it. I'm going to be very sick that day.
well, and aren't they doing the episodic thing with this as well?
I think so. I mean,
So-
the release date is a Friday.
Yeah.
So
You might feel that Mandalorian spot.
I think it's going to, which I'm totally okay with. I like the building of suspense week after week. I like being able to take my time and really digest each episode.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and for
before
me,
going
if
on to the
it's
next
a
one.
binge thing, I won't find time to binge it. I don't have binging time
Yeah.
in my schedule these days. And
Well, and as much as I hate it, it's obviously worked out better for them for those reasons of people keeping the hype
Yeah.
up. Because you look at this compared to Witcher.
Why do you hate it though?
Because I want it all at once. I want to binge it. You know.
Come on, Ross, save that marshmallow.
I mean, even if I don't have time to watch it all at once, just knowing that I can is
you can in a
better.
couple months when all the episodes are out.
stop it. But again, how much hype Mandalorian got the world over versus how much The Witcher got, even though there were some little things that came out that said that Witcher actually had more demand, but it's I don't know.
Maybe, but it's a flash in the pan.
Yeah.
Is the thing. It's much better to have a slow, steady burn than a flash in the pan.
Yeah.
The Witcher was it was number one for the week that it came out, and then everybody finished binging, and now we're back to talking about Mandalorian.
Yeah, how
You
much
know?
people miss Mandalorian. Yeah. And so I almost guarantee Netflix probably saw this and was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. I bet you anything else they release from here on out will probably be episodic. That's my bet.
I don't think so. I think Netflix will still say well, hey, you don't want to wait for your episodes? This is what Netflix
But the thing
is.
is-
Netflix has been highly resistant to change for a long time.
But they haven't needed to, is the thing.
That's true.
That's
They
also
haven't
true.
had a
That's
competing
But-
series or
Well,
service.
even when Hulu started and Amazon started theirs and they started becoming big names that could potentially threaten, and there was things that I remember reading an article once that was a bunch of ideas that are working for these that Netflix should logically consider and just aren't. Just nope, not doing it.
And it may have been the curse of the winter. They didn't feel like they needed to yet.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, that's
'cause they were
possible,
still even though those other services were getting hype and were
But see,
well used
until we
people-
get some actual numbers for Mandalorian,
Yeah.
I don't think Netflix is going to consider anything until those are made public and they know it's oh, this is what we're up against.
It might be true. But they might also have their own studies and surveys that we
Yep,
don't have
that's
access
possible.
to. So
That's true.
anyway, so the trailer was super awesome, including some little Easter eggs. In
That
the
was
trailer.
cool. I did not
Yeah.
notice that until articles started coming
Yeah,
out.
I didn't either. So if you look real closely, there is one particular shot in the trailer of a bunch of Jedi in hologram standing around some sort of planning table, whatever they always stand around. And people have identified Depa Billaba as one of the Jedi
And she
standing
is,
around.
for those who are not as cool as me and already know,
She is one of the masters, correct? Was she
Yeah.
on the council?
she's somebody's specific master.
Hold
Yes.
on.
Oh,
I was getting there.
She was
She's
on
mostly
the council.
significant for whose master
Correct.
she is.
she was on the council.
Yeah, I was getting to.
Before getting all of her clones slaughtered and getting PTSD and having to take some time off of work.
Yes. Standing next to her is a little Padawan,
Yep.
who the more dedicated Rebels fans will know as Kanan Jarrus, also known as Caleb Dune.
Yep.
So, and the one thing that stuck out to me, especially seeing all these pictures, is how much they've made him look like Ezra.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
But it was pretty cool. I was excited for that. I'm like, that's a cool and natural Easter egg to throw in there. That
Yeah.
doesn't feel forced fan service. It's just she is canonly around at this time. It makes sense to just be like,
Well,
hey, here it is. you
yeah.
know?
And some of it depends on presentation. It's like
Right.
it's like in Rogue One. It's like I have no problem with
Rogue One and Hera.
No,
or
it's,
not Rogue One. The Ghost and Hera.
No, it's what's his name? Jimmy Smits.
Oh,
Bail
yeah.
Organa.
Yeah.
I have no problem with Bail Organa being there. Of course he would. It's the fact that they grind that scene to a halt so that he can dramatically step out of the shadows while Jin looks at him all confused, like, who is this? And then they continue their conversation as though we never stopped talking, and he doesn't participate in the conversation in any way. And literally the only reason we halted the entire conversation so that everyone could stand there in silence was so that we could be like, hey, do you recognize this, nerds? Yeah, get a load of that. It was like, if he had just stepped in and we'd just seen him there, yeah, cool, awesome. Hey, they got Jimmy Smits here. This is great.
Yeah.
But it's the presentation that makes it obnoxious.
Yeah. And finally, for our newsiest news in awesomeness, for our most beloved John Williams, he has been nominated for his 57th Oscar for
It's
the
so many.
52nd Oscar, excuse me, for his Rise of Skywalker album.
Do you realize that he could, like, take out and polish and put on display an Oscar nomination for every week of the year?
Yes, he could.
A different one. Like, the man has so many Oscars.
This week we're gonna celebrate this one.
Yeah, like, and well deserved too. Like,
Oh, yeah.
for all of the problems of Rise of Skywalker that there were, the music was not one of them.
Yeah.
The music was awesome. Like,
I have
will
no
say
real
that.
memory of the music, but
Well,
I'm sure it was.
And my opinion, especially
But
after getting the album,
musical cues were great. Like when the fleet shows up and stuff, I'm like, absolutely heroic music, but they're going to
it's very heavy on the majestic side of music,
Yeah,
and it's
sure.
not. I mean, it's all pretty, but it didn't really get me going like the other
That's
albums
It's
did.
not as bad.
This is pretty
that's for
clearly
sure.
it's like, hey, John Williams has completed his run on Star Wars.
Yeah.
That needs an Oscar
Yeah,
nomination.
I think he'll
and
get a
that's
nomination.
absolutely
I don't
deserved.
think he'll win it,
Probably
but-
not, no.
but
He's got enough.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's got enough Oscars to do it like every other week.
It's one of those things where it's like, basically at this point, he has to create an orchestral score that's so great that it brings Jesus back. And if he's going to get an Oscar nomination, it's just like, all right, you've done it. We all know you're the best, John. The only thing you qualify for at this point is Lifetime Achievement Awards. You can have all of those.
Well, I think he's already been getting some.
Probably.
Yeah.
Because I remember there was
Yeah, I thought there was.
there was a big
like
thing.
year ago or something like that.
Well, there was one that was several years ago
Yeah.
that he got honored for. Something.
Well, he
Anyway.
deserves it. He's amazing.
It's
He
true.
is.
So.
We should do a whole episode on him.
Oh wait.
Wait.
Episode 26.
There we go.
Oh, you even know the number.
Yeah, for some reason.
Wow.
It's a good episode, though.
It is
That
a good
episode was
episode,
really fun. That is actually one of our episodes that I listened all the way through to. Like after we
Yes, I
published
did
it.
too, because I wanted to hear all the bits that Russ put in there for us. And
Yeah.
there's the most new content for me to hear
Yeah.
in that episode, so I did listen to that one. All the way
Took
through.
so long to edit.
You listeners
I'm
are
sure it
lucky
did.
in a way.
Ross
that-
did.
gosh.
Go listen to that episode again just to appreciate Ross's hard work.
Yeah.
Because heaven knows we're not doing that for him.
I hate you guys. And that's our newsiest news.
The newsiest of news.
Yes.
It's a good section of newsy news.
We
Ross.
had
Good
so
job.
much newsy news and some rumory rumors.
It was nice.
We just need some endingly endings. Ah, damn, that didn't work as well.
If you'll all excuse me, I'll be in the bathroom not Epsteining myself.
Well, I mean, you can't Epstein yourself without help from someone else. So
Can we get away from the murder? let's
let's just put that in the outro. Ross going, can we get away from the murder?
Yes! Yes! Ross, okay. Oh, boy. And then some of my comments without context at all.
yes.
Yeah. Oh, boy. So today, we're going to talk about a massive company, massive profit-generating organization with its own private army, waging war of its own accord on separate nations. Yes, that's right. We're talking about the East India Trading Company today,
Indeed.
also known as the British East India Trading Company or the Trading Company, or there were like 17
There were quite a few
names
titles,
for
yeah.
this. It's ridiculous. So I'm just going with the British East India Trading Company or the East India Trading
I
Company.
feel like
Or
those are the
East
most
Com-
well-known
East India
ones these
Company,
days. Yeah.
That all the rest of us know from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes.
Yeah. Correct. It's
Had a
all of
brush
those
with the
guys.
East India Trading Company. Have you?
Yes.
Pirate.
But you have heard of me. I know it's not what it says right there, but
No, but it's a good line.
It is a good line. So, to start this research, I just Googled British East India Company blockade. Because,
Okay,
let me back up.
I was going to say, do you want to tell them how it relates to Star Wars before we jump in?
If you haven't guessed already, we're going to be talking about the Trade Federation today. And how it... Because I was watching episode 1 the other day, or part of it was maybe on TV or something. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
But, yeah. And so... but I was thinking about it, and I was like, wow. I don't know why I haven't realized this before, but it's totally the East India Trading Company. Totally is.
I'm going to make myself feel all superior now by saying that I made that connection before.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to admit that I was lying.
This other day might have been several days ago, because I think you've had this on the list for a while.
Yeah, it's been on there for a bit.
It's been on the list
Yeah.
for a while, but I mean, it was... Compared to the other Star Wars connections that I've made in my life, this is a fairly recent one.
That's fair.
So, yeah, the other
Have we
day...
had enough calling Kyler out on his BS?
The other day, meaning
He said the other day,
6 to 9 months ago, I had
That's
this
the
idea.
other day.
Okay, okay.
At our age and any age older than this, a few months ago is the other day.
Usually when you say that means within the last week.
Okay, within the last year, but definitely not before 6 to 9 months ago.
That's very recent.
I had this idea.
Thanks.
Or I had this connection. And so I was like, that would be a fun
Star Wars
episode to
connection.
do.
I also just want to chalk this up to
Write
me
that
derailing
out.
the episode.
The
Or
lovers,
a
the
game
haters,
show.
and me.
Yes, Chris, we need to write this down on the episode idea. I love it. I love it so much. I don't know what the episode will be about, but we're going to do it. That title alone warrants an episode. So we're going to... You see how I just don't even stop and let Ross derail me?
Nice.
Until now.
But you noticed.
I did. It was great.
But you did notice it.
It's true, I did. High five.
Yeah. Callbacks.
So I Googled. I was like, okay, we're going to start this research proper, because the superficial similarities are there, but I want to make sure we do this right.
Yeah, absolutely. You are a historian.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't
Yes.
any other way. So I Googled British East India Company blockade, because I'm like, well, they blockade Naboo. Let's just see if there are any historical big blockades from the... So there are many. But the very first result was this. It was just a little snippet from Wikipedia. It was like a Wikipedia article for a specific blockade, and it has a little paragraph there that shows up in Google.
Yep.
So, Child's War was a war between the English East India Company and the Mughal Empire of India, ruled by Emperor Aurangzeb, which lasted from 1686 to 1690, so 4 years. Mm-hmm. I was like, wow, that's hilarious. The very first entry in this sort of random Google search is something interesting. But did you guys notice that? Notice something interesting about
The
that?
Mughal?
Well, there's that too. It is the Mughal Empire. It's an old Muslim empire that was dying out around the time that the East India Company was rising.
Okay, what did I miss there?
So let me read it again. Child's War was a war between the English East India Company and the Mughal Empire of India, ruled by Emperor Aurangzeb, which lasted from blah 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 to blah blah blah.
The Child's War?
Well, there's that too. Yeah, the commander's name was Child.
Oh, I was hoping it was because the emperor was a child. I
That
was
would
like,
be so cool,
awesome.
right?
Okay, no, what did I miss again?
It's not a war between countries.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's the company declares war on an empire. It would be like Amazon, like Jeff Bezos being like, listen, Malaysia, we're going to go to war.
Don't give him ideas.
I know, right?
What's wrong with you?
But how crazy is that the company is just like, as a company, with like a president and a CEO and employees, we're just going to do this.
Yep.
I was like, that is hilarious, because it wasn't the British Crown saying, hey, trade company, you've already got men and equipment in the area. Why don't you go ahead and do this war for us? Mm-hmm. The company, independent of the British Crown, was just like, meh, feel like a war today.
Yep. As far as examples of companies taking on a nations influencing and breaking presence of their own in the world, of which there are many, the British East India Trading Company is possibly the number one.
I think it's the number one.
Yeah.
So, and also just background, just to give you some scale, because it's not like Amazon declaring war on the Sudan or something like that, like some podunk nobody country.
No offense to any Sudanese listeners.
Yeah, I'll apologize when they start getting downloads in Sudan. But the Mughal Empire, though in decline at this period, was still a force to be reckoned with. It controlled nearly all of India. Mm-hmm. The southern part had already broken away into its own little empire. But, like, the entire probably 2/3, like, if you were to just, like, measure the distance from, like, North India to South India, like, the top 2/3 is all Mughal-controlled. Pakistan, Bangladesh, like, all, like, over the mountains and into... Oh. Yeah, that's just my book. Okay. Like, it was not a small empire.
Yeah.
A little antiquated, sure, which is why they lost to the Amazon of their day.
Yes.
But still, like, that's impressive that this company is just like, well, for profit.
Yep.
So here are some facts about the East India Trading Company that I thought might be interesting and educational, and also I'm a historian, so you have to just deal with this. So originally chartered as the Governor and Company of Merchants of London Trading into the East Indies, because that's a mouthful for your company's name.
Pretentious.
The company rose to account for, care to guess what percentage of world trade?
Oh, I'm going to go with 78.
Huge. Yeah.
Oh, a little high, but still staggering.
What, 70?
50.
Cool.
Oh,
Half
still
the world.
half. Yeah.
But think about it. Half of all trade on the planet
Yeah.
done by these guys. That ain't small. Like, you think about, like, how massive Walmart or Amazon are today, and they're not coming close to this level of commerce.
Give Disney a while, though.
The Disney umbrella, once they buy Amazon and Walmart. Oh, yeah, but that's crazy. Account for half the world's trade, and I love this next part. Oh, Wikipedia. Particularly in basic commodities. You ready for what Wikipedia considers basic commodities?
Yes, I'm...
Cotton? All right.
Yep, that's definitely basic.
Fair. Silk? Okay, a little less basic.
But very well known for its tradeability.
Indigo dye. It's about the same level of not basic as silk. Salt, all right.
Yeah, very
Spices.
basic. Salt is very...
Okay, a little bit more. Saltpeter. That makes gunpowder. So,
yep,
okay,
absolutely.
A little bit of that. Tea. Fair enough.
Especially if you're British.
And now your final common or basic commodity, opium.
Oh, nice.
We consider opium drugs a basic commodity in the...
In those days, I mean, arguably.
I just thought that was hilarious.
As basic as soak and indigo, sure.
I was just like, commodities, sure, but basic commodities. Is opium a basic commodity?
Yeah, I think opium, silk, and indigo dye, maybe not.
Yeah, that was funny.
By the way, I just did a quick search as we were sitting here as a comparison for the modern companies and what sales they do.
Up.
Do you? Okay, never mind.
Okay,
we'll get to it later.
The company also ruled the beginnings of the British Empire in India. So
yes,
yeah. During the first century of operation, the focus of the company was on trade. So that's roughly 1600 to 1700. Mm-hmm. They were basically just like, look, we're literally just a business. We are a joint stock company. We just want to ship stuff over from India.
Yep.
Focus on trade, not the building of an empire in India. Company interest turned from trade to territory during the 18th century, so 1700 to 1800, as the Mughal Empire declined in power and the East India Company struggled with its French counterpart, the French East India Company. Because names were super creative. Oh, yes. By the way, there's also a Dutch East India Company.
I mean, I think those are all a little more specific than Amazon. I mean, like...
Yeah. So
they're not Brazilian.
By 1803, at the height of its rule in India, the British East India Company had a private army of about 260,000 men. Mm-hmm. 250,000 employees of this company whose job is to be soldiers and take territory. Yep. By the way, that's twice the size of the British Army at that time.
I was going to say, I know that at one point they had a larger army than the country
Which
did.
is crazy. And here is what Ross was getting into. With Indian revenues of 13,464,561 pounds, equivalent to 229.9 million pounds in 2018, and expenses of 14,017,473, equivalent to 239.3 million in 2018. You'll notice that that's roughly $10 million a year that they're losing.
I was curious.
Yep. So the company, surprisingly, eventually came to rule large areas of India with its private armies, exercising military power and seizing administrative functions. Company rule in India effectively began in 1757 and lasted until 1858, when, following the Indian Rebellion of 1857, the Government of India Act 1858 led to the British Crown assuming direct control of the Indian subcontinent in the form of the new British Raj. So despite frequent government intervention, the company had recurring problems with its finances. Note the $10 million a year that it's losing. It was dissolved in 1874 as a result of the East India Stock Dividend Redemption Act, because the British love to name their long name acts, passed 1 year earlier, as the Government of India Act had by then rendered it vestigial, powerless, and obsolete. So basically it just wasn't making any money, and the British Crown was like, well, we'll make more money as an empire by just assuming direct control of India rather than taxing you, a failing company.
Yes.
So, bye.
Wow.
Yeah. So they show up, and it was kind of interesting. I didn't include a lot more detail there, but basically they put down local rebellions that threatened the company's property, which then left a power vacuum that they were asked to fill by other local people, because they had the manpower and equipment sufficient to maintain order.
And nobody else really did.
Right. And then that just snowballed throughout northern India and then into southern India.
Yep.
Which is crazy.
It's insane. It's always fascinating to read about.
Now, some basic info about the Trade Federation.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Russ, was that what you had when you were looking?
Okay. I was looking up more stats, and because you were saying that the
yeah.
East India Trading Company did 50% of the world's commerce back in its day. And so I got thinking, well, I think Amazon was the largest one I can think of comparatively, right? And so what is the percentage that they do? 13%.
Yeah.
So,
are they the largest one?
I was looking up to verify that, and I can't quite find the right numbers.
So 4 times the amount of business that Amazon does.
Yeah.
Just under that.
Walmart might be larger, but I'm still looking up those numbers, so stay tuned.
That is
Cool.
bonkers.
It is.
Because, like, you think about how big Amazon is and how much business they do, and go, they're only doing a quarter of that.
And Jeff Bezos has been jumping up to the richest man in the world and back down, back and forth for a while now.
Yeah, that's nuts. So, Trade Federation. Trade Federation was an interstellar shipping and trade conglomerate during the waning years of the Galactic Republic, one so powerful that it had its own representatives in the Galactic Senate, much like the British East India Trading Company in Parliament. They had very powerful lobbyists. Because, again, when you're dealing in half the world's business, you can pretty much tell your government to do what you want. The Federation would often force planets into exclusive contracts, which in several circumstances gave them the ability to blockade planets and control system politics, as we see in Episode 1, where they were basically like, look, we own you, Naboo. Play along, for heaven's sakes. And then they didn't. Gunray, the president...
Little did they know that there were protagonists among them.
No kidding, right? Protagonists always pro-tagging and screwing things up with their pro-tag. So Newt Gunray pledged his droid forces to the Confederacy of Independent Systems, and the Federation fought Republic and Jedi armies throughout the Clone Wars. Gunray and his fellow Separatist Council members were killed by Darth Vader at the end of the war. I don't know if you knew that. Little known fact. And the Trade Federation was then nationalized by the newly formed Galactic Empire. So, that's that.
Interesting. So yeah, some definite parallels.
Yes, I thought that was really interesting, just that it is a company with its own private army, which is larger than the state government in which it operates, in their army, you know what I mean? Because that's the whole problem of Attack of the Clones is, well, shoot, the Trade Federation has thrown in their lot with the Separatists, and they have a bigger army than anything the Republic can throw at it.
Yep.
So, by quite a lot, it seems.
Yeah.
Until 200,000 clones show up with a million more well on the way.
Yes. And even then, they were still outnumbered.
Yeah.
Just that clones were superior to droids.
Amazing. And they certainly are. Those
and
red
you
defense
had a bunch of
stacks.
Jedi and also protagonists.
Yep. Dang, pro-tags again.
It's true.
Man, can't they just let a company in peace? Honestly.
Apparently not.
So behind the scenes, I don't know why I was surprised to see this, but here we go. The Trade Federation was inspired by both the British East India Company and the 17th to 18th century VOC, the Verenigde Oostindische Compagnie. Sorry, my Dutch is a little rusty. That's just the Dutch East India Trading Company.
So is the Dutchess.
Yeah.
Their Dutch is a little rusty too.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Better known in English as the Dutch East India Trading Company, especially the latter had its own fleet, one that rivaled most countries in the right to wage its own wars, negotiate treaties, and hold colonies, and a near monopoly on the extremely lucrative spice trade. So that's the Dutch East India Company.
Yeah,
That they had power from the Dutch government to wage war, negotiate treaties on their own, to hold colonies in the company's name, and then of course that would just get taxed by Holland.
And that is pretty direct.
Yeah, that's like exactly
Holding
what we see
colonies
going
there is
on.
very
Yeah,
much what was happening with Naboo.
yeah, exactly. It's just fantastic.
And it also makes it a little more understandable why, like, watching episode 1, I was always in this little gray area as to how they thought they could really get the Senate to ratify them invading and controlling Naboo. But if I'm looking at it from that perspective, of this massive company that has this go ahead from the government to do certain things,
Yeah.
and then it's just like, yes, we are controlling this colony, and we're going to get taxed for it, and you're all going to get kickbacks from this. It's like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Unfortunately,
I have completed my research as well as I think I can while actively on the podcast.
sweet.
Apparently, the world's
done.
largest company by sales is Walmart, as I
Okay.
was just saying a second ago.
Okay, that's not surprising.
Their revenue, at least for the year that this chart is listing, which I think was last year, puts them at twice the revenue of Amazon.
Oh, so still only half.
Yeah.
A quarter, a
what?
quarter of the total population. Yeah,
Well,
so
and that's-
half of what the.
Yeah. And this list also includes oil companies, by the way.
Oh,
So Walmart,
wow.
period,
Can I see that
does
real
the
quick?
most. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
have a
nuts.
curiosity.
Yeah, so Walmart right now is still only doing half the commerce that the British East India Company was
Yeah.
doing, as far as percentage goes.
Correct.
That's nuts. So imagine Walmart, but twice.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's incredible. That's such a ridiculous amount.
I was curious
of
there because I was
control
like, but
and money.
I was like, but isn't Walmart just? Isn't it under an umbrella with, like, because I know Sam's Club is owned by the same people, and there's a
But it's
couple
still
others.
Walmart Corp.
But yeah, Walmart
So
is the
yeah.
overall umbrella
Yes.
corporation,
Yes,
as
it
well
is.
as that particular brand of stores.
Yep.
So
So this is back to the the Dutch India Company. The company, considered to be the first ever transnational corporation, would be worth around $7.4 trillion in modern day dollars.
wow.
So it's like, yes, Jeff Bezos is rich at, $1 billion or whatever he is, but
Yeah.
the company is 7.4 trillion with a T dollars.
Yep.
That's a lot of money. That's so much money. Oh my goodness.
I can just see that one Disney executive sitting there with his cigar in his office. He's got posters of the Dutch India Trading Company and the British India Trading Company on his wall. He's just like, someday.
Yeah. How much does Disney do, Ross? Can you look that up while we're...
Yes, I can. I know they're not in the top 50 when you include
No,
oil
they're
companies.
not.
Wow.
But-
Not even in the top 50. That's
Well, but when
nuts.
you're including oil companies,
Yeah,
most
it's
of those
because
are
of
oil
all the
companies.
commodities. Disney does not trade in commodities,
That's
in
true.
basic needs and everything.
Not yet.
Within entertainment, they are king.
They're the top, yeah.
But yeah, they're not trading in all of that and everything.
So as I was reading...
But within entertainment, that's what that guy is sitting here dreaming of. Is someday.
that they were inspired by the British East India Company, that comes straight from StarWars.com.
There you go.
So, while I was looking on Wikipedia, though, for more of this episode, going back to George just naming things right on the nose. So, Chancellor Valorum, who was the Chancellor before Palpatine, remember?
Yes, Terrence Stamp, the excellent Terrence
He's
Stamp.
so good. He's a great... I'll watch him in literally anything.
He's wonderful.
We could film him like reading out of the phone book and I'd still watch it. He's
Yes.
got such a great voice.
The inimitable General Zod.
He's so good. So the character's name is Finis Valorum. Finis. Valorum.
Yes.
And I was like, wait a minute, that looks like Latin. Does that mean what I think it means? And I knew I was right, but I was like, George, come on.
Finis Valorum, so like final.
we're getting there.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm looking at that going, I already know what that means because, medieval historian, Latin.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong on this. So I went to Google, Latin translate, here we go, Finis Valorum. George named this character the End of Valor.
End of Valor. I was going to say, that sounds like...
So we've got Darth Sidious, Darth Maul, Darth Tyrannus, General Grievous, and the End of Valor.
Yep.
Man.
Oh, George Lucas, I love you.
That's particularly great because in episode 1, the entire plot point revolving around Chancellor Valorum is that Chancellor Valorum is no longer strong enough to control the Republic.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the End of Valor. Wow.
Poetic.
Well, it's something.
Yeah, it is something. Oh, man. So there was a lot of other information. Really interesting, actually, just reading about the East India Company.
Yeah.
But as far as more direct parallels go, because then we get the Clone Wars, which it doesn't really quite
Yeah,
match up.
this is what we've got in Star Wars is if you had a civil war where the British East India Trading Company was basically trying to secede from Britain and be like, nope, we're going to be our own nation now, along with
Which
all
would
these
have been
colonies and
hilarious
all these
because
different-
Britain would have lost, definitely.
Yeah, quite probably.
Well, when you control half the world's trade and your army is bigger than the country
Well, you
you're
control
coming
half the
from-
world's trade, but you are losing money every year and are only staying afloat thanks to the crown.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. No, that's true. Okay. But hey, without
which is
having
probably why that didn't
without
happen.
having to pay taxes, though,
Yeah, that's fair.
then you're getting some revenue back. Alternate timeline.
I'm curious. Now I really do want to just do some historical digging to be like, how much was the British East India Trading Company paying to the Crown? What was the Crown doing to keep it afloat? And would a break have been conceivable for the British East India Trading Company?
That would be a fascinating fiction
Yeah,
novel, like
right?
alternate history. I think. Man.
Now it also makes more sense as to why the East India Trading Company was the villain in the last 2 Pirates films.
Oh, yeah. They're villain in a lot of historical fiction.
They're a villain in a lot of history.
There you go. Yep. You got there just before I did.
Although heroes in some other ways, I do have a fun historical tidbit. So, of course, European colonization of places outside of Europe gets a lot of crap and bad rap.
With very good reason, yes.
But also unfairly a lot of times. So it was custom in India, before the British came in and put a stop to this, that when a husband died, all of his wives, to show their sadness, would be required to throw themselves on his funeral pyre. And by the way, if you didn't feel like you loved your husband enough to throw yourself on his funeral pyre, his family would help remind you that you did love him that much and throw you on there.
Yep.
Yeah, so the British came in and they were like, whoa, listen, we're all about fidelity in marriage, ostensibly.
That's Thank you for that.
But, burning yourself alive when your husband dies is maybe a bit extreme, so don't do that anymore at all. And they put a stop to that, saving literally
Lots of
hundreds
lives.
of thousands of
Yeah.
lives. So
yeah.
that's
Part of me wants to
it's
do
not all bad.
He wants to do
is
a
all I'm saying.
utilitarian breakdown and be like, well, let's see versus, cost versus saved. I want to see where it broke down, but
The woke
Yeah.
probably won't appreciate that because generally speaking, it's much better to have been colonized in the long run than not to.
in a
have
lot
been.
of ways, yeah, absolutely. And that's, I always love that it's just nothing is entirely black and white. There's good
Yes,
things
that
that
is
are being
true.
done. There's bad things that are being done. And I'm just curious what the breakdown would be now.
Yeah. Off the record, I have lots more to say on that. Oh boy, history's a fascinating subject.
Indeed.
So that's it. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Oh, that was my baby downstairs just
Yep.
talking. Yeah, she's gonna be like her dad. She talks a lot.
She'll be the one that we all turn the mic down on.
Mm-hmm. No, boy, number 3, Alessia. Already, I'm like, is there a volume on you? Can I mute you? Good heavens.
I get that way sometimes with our oldest. Yeah, I have so many times where I'm sitting there and I've just gotten so used to tuning out the babble that I'll just be sitting. I was sitting there eating breakfast the other day, and then I look up and I'm like, "Oh, you have totally been talking for the last 2 minutes to me.
Oh.
And but none of it was like, it was all just like rattling on about like, then we were playing this video game and then this happened and then this happened and this happened and this happened. And it's like, it's the Lego Incredibles game. It's like, I know the plot, bud. Like, and I told him that at the beginning. I was like, I know how it goes. And he's just like, oh yeah. And then proceeds to continue telling me anyway. And that's why he gets tuned out. But it's just these moments of looking up and realizing, oh, you never stopped. Oh, my bad. Like, I'll have so many times where I tell him like, okay, I'm done. Like, I've got to work. I'm putting in my headphones now because I'm going to do some work and everything on the computer now. I love you. And he's like, okay. And then I'll look up several minutes later and he's just sitting there talking. I have my headphones in. I haven't heard a single thing. And he just keeps going.
So
I did similar things when I was a kid.
We hope you enjoyed this almost certainly shorter episode.
Oh, yeah,
listeners are sitting there like, we've listened to the Chris episodes, Chris. You still do that.
Yeah.
Only this time they're tuning you out.
That's right.
Hey, you still got 20 minutes, bud,
Before
our time goal.
of an hour?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't have anything more to say. We can just call it a day.
These guys aren't getting their money's
That's barely
worth.
a Nerf nugget.
Man.
I'm sorry.
Okay, wait. I want to think. I had this idea earlier. I was trying to think of other sci-fi influenced by stuff like the British India Trading Company. Because a lot of sci-fi, especially dystopia sci-fi, they really lean heavily into corporations taking over government and ruling
Because
people.
they hate capitalism.
Yeah, but a lot of it's influenced by stuff of the East India Trading Company, what it was and what it could potentially become, what a lot of current companies are and could potentially come, given enough influence and such, and if unrestrained. And so I'm just trying to think of some good examples. Like Blade Runner's got some great examples with their corporations being
I've not
super
seen Blade
powerful.
Runner.
You've not seen Blade Runner?
Nope.
I have not seen the new one, but yeah, Blade Runner's excellent. It's classic for a reason.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, and it's got Han Solo in it. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't go wrong. Yeah, but I'm kind of blanking off the top of my head. But yeah, this is a common theme in science fiction for good reason. Like when the British East India Trading Company is one of the best examples in history of what can happen when a company gets its britches a little too big and just goes out and just decides to do its own stuff.
I'm just now realizing this is basically the same plot as Tacky on the Fringe. Do you remember that game?
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's right. That's a great game.
That was a good game.
Man, I remember it taking a lot longer as a kid, and I've replayed it since. And
Don't
I'm
you love
like,
that?
it's like 45 minutes, and I'm done.
Earlier this week, but my wife was sick last weekend, and then it hit my youngest, and then my oldest, just in short, one after the other, and then it got me. And so I was just laying there miserable and everything, and I was like, I feel like replaying Might and Magic 7, because I have not played that in a while, and it was one of my favorite games. And I had gotten an email from goodoldgames.com, GOG.com, and where they're like, yeah, you can get this, these games are on sale. And I was like, what games do I even own on GOG? So I went in there, looked at my games, and I was like, oh, that's right, I have Might and Magic 7 on there, which I bought because once upon a time, I had borrowed it from my uncle, and I played it, I liked it, I gave it back. My aunt threw away all his games, so it was gone. I didn't have access to it, so when I got home from my mission, I was like, okay, I'm going to buy this. But 3DO and New World Computing that had produced these games had
They were gone.
under, yep. And so the only way to buy it was to buy old used copies, which ran anywhere from $75 to $100 on Amazon. And I was just like, I can't afford that.
And
so I
then
was
you had to get them and try and make them work on your computer.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
that was
at the time it wasn't that hard. I still had computers that could run it, but yeah, it's the CD-ROMs were going out fast, and so I downloaded an illegal bootlegged copy, and I was just like, who am I stealing from? Like, the company's gone.
Yeah.
I can't be stealing from it.
Someone probably still owns the rights.
They did,
but
yes, and they were producing new games, but had not released the old games out. And so I was just like, and so I was just like, you know what? If it ever becomes available legally for me to own, I will delete this copy and I will buy that one so that I can do it proper. But until then, I'm not stealing from anyone.
Yeah.
And then one day, Good Old Games, I found.
I remember having this
goodoldgames.com.
conversation with you.
And one day I found goodoldgames.com and discovered, oh, it's available legally now because that company released the old back catalog that they purchased. Well, darn it. Went and deleted my bootlegged copy, but wasn't flush enough at the time to be able to purchase games frivolously like that, so I didn't buy it. But then one day, a couple years ago, I was like, it is on sale for $2.50 on goodoldgames.com. I am buying that right now. And I did, and then I didn't get around to playing it, and so I pulled that out and was just like, yeah, we're doing this. And it's been like, 72 hours since then. I'm like 2/3 of the way through the game. I'm like, how? Like, even when I'm down sick, I don't have the kind of time to pour into playing games that I did back then. How did I do this?
Yeah.
Things go so much quicker these days.
Yep.
Anyway, that was a fun game.
Yeah, as that aside on this off-topic rant at the end of this episode.
Well, let me
we don't-
relate it back to Star Wars.
Yeah,
No, that doesn't
we
relate
don't.
to Star
We
Wars.
don't have to stretch it out. I was just making fun of you, Kyler. So I mean, it's fun.
I know. The one time, this, by the way, listeners, this is it. This is your one time a year where we actually come in under an hour for an episode. So, enjoy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if we leave in enough of our pre-conversation.
Nope. So, well, we hope you enjoyed this very brief little realization that I had probably way too late.
Let's put it this way, people. Kyler is a history professor, and he didn't overstay the lecture.
Yeah. I'm floored. How did you manage that? I don't know. How do you do that?
I don't know. This has never happened before.
Well, I know that fittingly, at least.
Ask my students in Michigan. I always was running into the end of the hour. And
Yep.
like, fetch. Okay, well.
Oh, good times.
Wish I didn't have to test them.
So if the
donate all that time to
Trade
lectures.
Federation is the East India Trading Company, then what is the banking clan?
Actually,
Dutch.
Yeah,
East
I mean,
India-
I was gonna say that's actually a good question. Were the other factions in the Star Wars universe based off of
Analogous
other
I mean, we
historical
could. None
things?
of them as.
Yeah, I can't think
specifically.
of anything quite as
So-
prominently clear as the banking clan.
So, like the banking clan, or banking clan probably would have been better as probably as the. Well, in some ways, better as the Dutch in terms of the Dutch were the next most wealthy, but they didn't have as big an army as the Dutch did.
Yeah. Well,
But
the
then
banking
you
clan
had like
isn't
the
making money off
Bactoid
of-
people. Bactoid, what are there? Fetch. Because there's the banking clan, which is the Munes, but then
And is
there's
it the next guy, the tall-headed guy?
who has keeps having to adjust the dials.
Well, that's the banking.
Oh, that's
Oh, wait, no.
he's not
That's
he's not. That's Bactoid armor works or something like that. I can't remember.
the Techno Union.
Techno Union.
Techno
There we
Union,
go. Yeah, the Bactoid Techno Union. They militarily would be closer to the Dutch
Yeah.
in terms of producing just a buttload of military that can stand against other nations, but they weren't as wealthy as the Dutch. They were more like the French in terms of wealth. So, anyway.
I'm trying to think of, because the banking clan isn't making money. They're not fielding their own troops and such. They're making money off of loans and interest and usury and such. And I'm like, I'm trying to think of the best real world example for
The Knights
banking
Templar.
clan. I mean, maybe.
They were the inventors of interest, anyway, as far as
Yeah.
the bank goes.
Yeah, historically.
Also, that's like the origin of a check, basically. Because you could deposit things like in France, like with the Templar in France, and they would write you out a note that said they deposited these items worth this much money.
Yeah.
And then you could go to Italy and cash it in at another Templar and be like, I need this much money taken out. And they would write you a new slip of paper that said, okay, they've now got this much credit with the Templar. And then you
I feel like I'm gonna
that's how
run
you
into-
get to the Middle East.
Wow.
On your pilgrimage is just you deposit a whole bunch where you started, and then you take a little bit out along the way.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going to run into some obvious real world analogy. Like someone's going to toss it in the second this goes live, we're going to get it in the Facebook group, and I'm going to be like, I know, I thought of that like 2 days later. Because right now I'm having trouble thinking of anyone because the Republic was straight up going to the banking clan for loans in the Clone Wars series, and I'm like trying to think of, I can't think of any non-national power that is like straight up just loaning
The
money
British
out
nobility
to, yeah, I guess
loaning
yeah.
to the crown.
Like it's basically China, but not as a country. Like we're loaning money to
Yeah.
everyone, and
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, it's not a perfect analogy, but it was definitely. I was like, okay, they clearly,
banking clan's the bank
they
of
clearly,
Bravos.
yeah, exactly. But they clearly modeled it after that, so it was cool. Anyway, so there you go.
Very nice.
Hope you enjoyed this. Are we still under an hour, Ross?
Just barely.
All right. Follow us on Twitter at More Civilized.
just talk slowly.
Slowly.
You're
Yeah,
going
slower.
quickly. You need to go slowly.
No, I was trying to do it
Follow
under an
us
hour.
on Twitter.
So yeah, our Twitter account at More Civilized, Facebook group A More Civilized Podcast, and just wanted to give a quick shout out to Steve Clay and all of his buddies in the military who he's turned on to our podcast. and
Hey,
they're listening,
thanks,
so-
Steve. We've also enjoyed your posts.
Interesting you should say that.
Hey!
Because this week's favorite listener
Hey!
is Stephen Clay, our old high school buddy, by sheer saturation. No,
Dude has
seriously.
been productive.
He's
It's true.
he's been very, very active. But the fact that he is supporting us so well makes us feel happy, and he's put a lot of work into it.
Yes.
My favorite meme was let me pull it up. Hold on, I had it saved. Wait, where'd it go? Sorry. Now I'm all wasting time.
He's just stalling for that hour mark.
It's really, yeah. I enjoyed the SpongeBob meme that he posted where the caption on top of the picture reads, "When Anakin becomes a Force ghost, then bumps into all the Jedi he killed, including Mace Windu." And it's a picture of
Hey
SpongeBob.
guys, how's the weather?
Wonderful weather we're having.
Yeah.
So thank you, Stephen.
That was good, yes.
It's good to see you in
It's true.
the digital realm. And keep it up. Anyway, you all can speak with me on Twitter as the @randompaladin.
Ah,
There we
dang
go.
it.
Did you see me thinking about it? Yeah. I was like, wait, which one?
It's
Right.
Mr. R-Star.
Yes. You can also find me on Twitter @itinerantbaxter, where I've finally reached the point where I occasionally post things that aren't bashing on Rise of Skywalker. Once again,
Very occasionally. That's
very occasionally.
all I've noticed recently.
But to be fair, I don't post much at all, and so it's by percentage. It's a significant shift, but yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and let us know if there are any topics you'd like us to cover that we have not, things that you'd like to hear us cover more in depth, things that you'd like to hear us stop talking about as long as they're not Star Wars. And,
LTUE, are we still before
oh,
that?
yes,
So,
we are
yes.
still before that.
Yeah,
A couple
actually,
more
that's right.
weeks,
That's,
yeah.
yeah, several.
So, Life, the Universe, and Everything is a science fiction fantasy writing symposium in Provo, Utah. Will be taking place the weekend of Valentine's Day from February 13th to the 15th. You can attend for one day, you can attend for all three, you can attend
I'll
for
be
any
there all 3
combination of that.
days
Yes,
on
Skylar and I will
panels.
both be there all 3 days. Ross will be there on Saturday.
Correct.
And we will be doing various. Kyler has a ton of panels related to history and stuff
Yep.
because when they get a someone who knows their history that they can latch their teeth into, they
And
gonna
how.
bleed everything they can out of him.
I
Yep.
was surprised.
I was and I wasn't because I was just like, no, I know how much if they can find expert speakers for various topics, they love it. And I will also be there speaking on writing and game design and history and on Star Wars.
Hey.
So Kyler and I will be sharing a panel on Star Wars on Saturday, and then the three of us will be talking about podcasting on Saturday as well.
Yeah, it'll be a crash course that would help you get started if you want
Yes.
to do your own podcast.
So if you feel like attending that, please do show. We would love to chat with you. Give us a shout out and let us know you came. If you are a student, high school, college, whatever, you can show a student ID. I believe you can still get in for free there. So give it a shot. I'd love to see you there.
Until next time, may the Force be with you.
Always.
I'm Anna Graves, and thank you for listening to a more civilized podcast.
Holy crap, what is going on?
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy old world.
Yeah, anyway, so...
Let's talk about Star Wars, guys.
Yeah! Let's
None
talk
of the-
about something a little more angry and
Yeah.
argumentative.
And we have nothing for the outro.
No, nothing from that.
Yeah.
You could pull random commentary from me with no context.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
wow.
I don't even know about that. 'Cause then people are going to be like, wait, what were you talking about? And I'm just like, nope, you know what? I don't even want to.
Nope. We're just big old teases here, and we're never going to tell that one.
It's funny that you said that, though, because I was thinking earlier, wow, you poor listeners, we can't share any of this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah, I have not had anyone to appreciate that bit of gossip.
That
And
is
thanks for letting
The
me
craziest.
pour that out on you.
Well, like, and the FBI probably has an agent assigned just to you, Chris.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. Chris
I'm in
is definitely on
someone's
some
docket
lists.
on some watch
Yeah.
list
Okay,
at
here's
some
my
point.
story for the
When you
outro.
add to that all the stuff I've Googled over the years. How do you build a bomb out of manure? Like,
Yeah, Chris probably has a very active personal NSA agent with him all the time.
wow.
Crazy,
Wow.
right? Okay, should we start this episode?
Man.
Dang it.
Moment of silence.
Oh, you dark son of a gun.
I am sorry.
Wow.
No, like, I am legit sorry. Like, that was horrible. Yeah, it might be one of the worst things I've ever said.
Wow. Let's forego that, shall we? Let's just get started.
No, let's
No,
do
we
an
need an
actual. We need the
actual-
silence, but yeah.
Yeah.
Whew, sorry.
This is by far.
Chris, you have repenting to do.
I do. I'm like, no, like, I have said a lot of things that appalled the people around me. I don't think, I have not said many things that made me feel that bad after.
Man.
Wow.
And I just, didn't even think, and then was just like, oh, God, oh, no.
Been
I need to go
so-
home and rethink my life.
You
most
really do.
macabre.
Really do.
Ugh.
Death sticks for you might be the better option. Okay.
From someone else, so.
Can we get away from the murder?